I love when I have super female entrepreneurs. This is Lesley Eccles, and she is the founder of Relish. And before that, talk about a transition, was the co-founder of FanDuel. So we're going to talk about two different fantasy sports here, one dating and one actual fantasy sports. But as a chancellor of Junior Achievement University, it's amazing because we have 100 million alumni. It's a huge organization for entrepreneurs 15 to 25. More women now. When I started there, it was predominantly young men. Now there's more women than men because of innovators like you that have given confidence to like my teenage daughters that, hey, this is an equal field. And in some respects, I think it's not equal anymore because you have a superior intellect to most men like me. And the way that you look at things really can change the world. Let's start with something that's weird. Here you're a woman entrepreneur from Scotland and you end up co-founding FanDuel.
Yeah.
How do we connect the dots backwards to get you there?
Yeah, the funny story. It was 2007 and I've always said there's never a great time to start a business. Never.
Which is opposite of most people. Like, there's always a great time to start
no, there's never a good time. You just have to do it. And 2007, I had a newborn baby, a toddler, a huge mortgage. We just moved from London up to Edinburgh. And my husband said he was unhappy in his job. I was still on maternity leave. And he wanted to start a company.
What was your job at the time that you were?
I was a management consultant before FanDuel.
Perfect. Traditional job.
So, not the best time to start a company in anyone's book.
Right.
But I knew at that point, if we didn't do it then, we would always look back with regrets. And I never want to do that in my life. And I never want my husband to look back and say, you don't let me do that. So I said, okay, let's do it. And he nearly fell off his chair. But we did it. And the first company that we started was actually a prediction market, nothing to do with fantasy sports.
Yeah.
And after about a year, we realized that this was just going to be impossible to monetize in any way. Super popular, difficult to monetize.
Can I stop you there? Because this is a huge point. I do a lot of executive coaching, and it amazes me with entrepreneurs. Do you feel that was something in retrospect you should have thought of when you were thinking of the idea of how am I going to monetize this? Because I see so many entrepreneurs don't do that, and me being one when I was young. Is that something you thought about when you started, like, we'll figure out how to monetize it?
Yeah, we did think about it, but we were wrong.
Oh, okay.
We had all these ideas of how we could monetize it, but we were wrong.
Yeah.
And we very quickly, after about a year, we decided, we're going to have to pivot into something else. We'd already raised about $1 million in VC money. And, as soon as you take that money, the clock is ticking and you have to show returns.
How did you deal with the investors when you made the pivot? I'm trying to ask the questions because entrepreneurs sit there and go, I'm stuck because I promised these guys this thing, and now I'm going to tell them this. How did you approach that?
I mean, in hindsight, we could have done it better. At the time, we were like, ta-da, here's our new product. This is what we're going to do. And they're all sitting around the table going, what? Excuse me? Fantasy sports? What are you talking about?
Oh, no.
So, with hindsight, we could have done a better job at sort of managing the expectations around it and taking it a little bit more slowly. But we were very much like, we don't have time to talk about this. We're very excited about the new product. We're just going to get it out there, test it, and see if we can make it work. And the new product was what turned into FanDuel. And it really came about...
What sport was it related to when it started?
We launched it in July, so it was baseball.
It was baseball, okay.
And then we launched football later in the year. But it really came from the idea of there being no innovation in the area in fantasy sports. Everyone was using ESPN, CBS, Yahoo, and had been doing for years. And there were pain points, and there was a way to improve it, but it involved a lot of talking to fantasy sports players because we weren't. There's no secret that I'm not a sports fan. I never have been, and I never will be. I haven't watched a game since I left FanDuel 2 years ago. But I got deeply passionate about fantasy sports because I was so passionate about building this company. I loved the intense experiences that our players had, the way that it just transformed the way that they watch sports. It was very, very exciting. And I loved the impact that it had in terms of it transformed the sports landscape in the whole country. We changed the laws in 22 different states during 2016.
You not only did that, but bridged the gap, I think, for the adaptation of gambling in a responsible way.
Right, yes.
And it really will make a huge difference of sports to bring out from the backyard and put into the front yard. What makes sports really exciting is the polling, the competition of the fans themselves beyond what they see.
Right. Yeah, and all the smack chat around it as well. Like,
of course.
You know, it's...
There's the Scottish in her. She can see I have some friends from Scotland I play golf with, and I'm like, I just think they beat me mentally. Not because they play better. It's like what they say. I'm like, what do you mean by that?
They break you down.
Exactly. Anyways, so, you know, in building that, what was the biggest challenge that you faced throughout the entire process, through your exit, with building FanDuel?
The biggest challenge. I think the biggest challenge in any startup is the mental challenge of just keep going, don't give up. Because it's the hardest thing, apart from parenting, it's the hardest thing you've ever done in your entire life. With FanDuel, we had more than our fair share of ups and downs. You know, any startup will go through periods of we're about to run out of money, we can't make payroll, you know, the traditional startup type of issues that you face. But with us, we had the additional challenges of insane competition, FBI, AGs across the country, threat of jail. Mafia. You know, that's not your sort of run-of-the-mill kind of startup issues that you face, right? No. Yeah. But I think because we had done it the hard way, we were a startup in Scotland, we were all British, none of us were American, we weren't into fantasy sports, we had to learn from scratch. Our first investors were from Scotland, our second investors were from London. You know, we weren't in the Valley, we weren't the cool kids. We found it hard to raise money because of that. And that stood us in good stead for dealing with all the stuff that came later, all the really hard stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it mentally prepared us for, it's not the end of the world if this all falls in a pile and gets shut down, you know, because we'd been through so much, and we'd been through so much as a founding team and a sort of team of employees, that those relationships were so strong and so tight. That was what gave me inspiration to start Relish after I left FanDuel.